History isn't only written in battlefields or at the ballot box, it's often decided in the courtroom. From school desegregation to voting rights, trials have tested the limits of freedom, equality, and justice. Welcome back to Deca Facts. In this video, we're uncovering 10 landmark US trials that reshaped civil rights and changed the course of history forever. Let's begin. 10. Dred Scott v. Sandford, 1857. In one of the most infamous Supreme Court decisions, Dred Scott, an enslaved man, sued for his freedom after living in free territories. The court ruled that African Americans, whether enslaved or free, could never be US citizens. This verdict not only denied Scott his freedom, but also inflamed tensions leading up to the Civil War. It's a haunting reminder of how the justice system once actively upheld slavery. Though overturned after the war, the case showed how courtrooms could reinforce or dismantle oppression. 9. Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896. This case involved Adolph Plessy, a mixed-race man who deliberately challenged segregation laws by sitting in a whites-only train car in Louisiana. The Supreme Court upheld segregation under the doctrine of separate but equal. This ruling cemented Jim Crow laws across the South for decades. While devastating at the time, Plessy's act of resistance later fueled legal challenges that chipped away at segregation. 8. The Scottsboro Boys Trials, 1931 to 1937. 9 black teenagers were falsely accused of sexually assaulting 2 white women in Alabama. With rushed trials, biased juries, and almost no legal defense, most were sentenced to death. Their appeals went all the way to the Supreme Court, which ruled that defendants are entitled to effective counsel and fair juries. This case exposed the deep racism of Southern courts and planted seeds for future civil rights battles about due process and fair trials. 7. Smith v. Allwright, 1944. At a time when African Americans were systematically excluded from elections in the South, the Democratic Party of Texas held whites-only primaries. Lonnie Smith, a black dentist, challenged the practice, and the Supreme Court struck it down. This case opened the door for black political participation across the South and marked a key step toward the Voting Rights Act of 1965. 6. Shelley v. Kramer, 1948. In many American neighborhoods, racially restrictive covenants barred homeowners from selling to people of color. When a black family, the Shelleys, bought a house in St. Louis, neighbors sued to enforce one of these covenants. The Supreme Court unanimously ruled that while private individuals could sign such contracts, state enforcement of them was unconstitutional. This landmark decision helped weaken legalized housing discrimination and paved the way for fair housing movements. 5. Brown v. Board of Education, 1954. Perhaps the most famous civil rights case of all, Brown challenged segregation in public schools. Thurgood Marshall, representing the NAACP, argued that separate but equal schools were inherently unequal. The Supreme Court agreed, overturning Plessy and declaring segregation unconstitutional in education. Though it faced massive resistance, this case became the legal cornerstone of the modern civil rights movement. 4. Loving v. Virginia, 1967. Richard and Mildred Loving, an interracial couple, were arrested in Virginia for marrying in Washington, D.C. The case reached the Supreme Court, which struck down bans on interracial marriage nationwide. The ruling was a monumental affirmation that the right to marry is a fundamental freedom, later cited in cases involving same-sex marriage. Their quiet but courageous fight reshaped the meaning of liberty in America. 3. Regents of the University of California versus Bakke, 1978. Alan Bakke, a white applicant, challenged the University of California's affirmative action program, claiming it discriminated against him. The Supreme Court delivered a complex ruling. It upheld affirmative action as constitutional but struck down strict racial quotas. This case set the stage for ongoing debates about race, equity, and opportunity in education, debates that continue to this day. 2. Obergefell v. Hodges, 2015. Though more modern, this case belongs in civil rights history. James Obergefell sued Ohio to have his marriage to his terminally ill partner recognized on his death certificate. The case reached the Supreme Court, which legalized same-sex marriage nationwide. Obergefell became a landmark in LGBTQ+ rights, echoing the Loving v. Virginia precedent decades earlier. 1. Gideon v. Wainwright, 1963. When Clarence Earl Gideon was accused of burglary in Florida, he couldn't afford a lawyer. Forced to defend himself, he was convicted. From his prison cell, Gideon handwrote an appeal to the Supreme Court. In a unanimous decision, the court ruled that the right to counsel is fundamental, and states must provide attorneys to defendants who can't afford them. This case forever changed the criminal justice system, ensuring fairness and due process for millions. These trials reveal how justice, though flawed, has the power to reshape society. Each courtroom battle tested the boundaries of equality and helped carve the path towards civil rights in America. And the fight is never over. Each new case has the potential to shape the future of freedom. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget, new videos drop 3 times a week right here on Deca Facts. Subscribe, hit the bell, and join us as we uncover the trials, crimes, and mysteries that defined history. See you in the next countdown.